Welcome back to Cozy Side Audio. Tonight's story is soft, slow, and written from the heart, perfect for those quiet hours. If it touches you, please like, share it with someone special, and subscribe for more gentle moments.
Let's begin the story.
Cozy Side Audio presents In the Lines You Left Me. Chapter 1, You Think You Know Me? Hashikawa Academy was the kind of school where status wasn't just acknowledged. It was maintained like a sacred ritual. Hallways whispered with invisible boundaries. And at the top of the student social food chain stood Asuka Hanazawa, captain of the girls' soccer team and certified queen of the campus. Next time, pass it earlier, Saya. This isn't playground soccer. Asuka's voice sliced across the field, loud and unforgiving. Her sleek black ponytail swayed behind her as she pivoted, jogging back into formation without another glance. Sweat shimmered on her neck and collarbone, but even under the summer sun, she looked composed, powerful, untouchable. 17 years old and nearly 6 feet tall in cleats, she was built like a forward in a championship game. Lean muscle, sharp lines, and eyes like polished steel. Her uniform clung to her like it was tailored by fate itself, the red captain's band cinched tight around her arm. She was admired. She was feared. She was arrogant beyond reason. And yet, when a junior player twisted her ankle mid-scrimmage, Asuka was the first to kneel beside her, muttering something low and encouraging. No one heard it, but they saw the way her fingers lingered on the girl's shoulder, and they remembered that when push came to shove, Asuka Hanazawa didn't let her team fall alone. Somewhere buried under the snark and swagger, there was a girl who had once played barefoot soccer in the park with neighborhood boys. A girl who gave high fives to every goal, win or lose. But that was before her father's fame as a former pro-turned-coach cast a long shadow over her life. Before she was told over and over again that only the best deserved to be happy. While Asuka dominated the spotlight, the shadows belonged to Toma Inoue. 17, lanky, with permanent ink smudges on his fingers and bangs that hung too long over his eyes. He walked like someone who had learned to make himself small to navigate the world without drawing attention. His hoodies were always too big, as if he could disappear into them. His sketchbook rarely left his grip. He was the kind of student teachers forgot to call on. The kind that groups overlooked during project pairings. The kind that had been the target of mild but persistent bullying since his first year. Gum in his locker, cruel nicknames whispered just loud enough to hear. A kick-me sign once taped to his back during a school-wide assembly. He had 2 friends. Kenta Mori. Shorter, louder, thick-rimmed glasses and a brain full of supervillain monologues. Akira Fuji. Wiry, sleep-deprived, and perpetually doodling mech armor or dramatic hair flips in the margins of his notebooks. Together, they created Ether Knights, an indie webcomic about outcasts in a collapsing world who rise up as broken heroes. Toma handled the character designs and inking. Kenta wrote dialogue. Akira handled panels and scenery. Toma lived in the background, not because he lacked talent but because he'd been taught by experience by embarrassment that speaking up made you a target. He moved cautiously, spoke softly, and observed more than he participated. It wasn't shyness. It was survival. He told himself he preferred it that way. But even he couldn't ignore Asuka Hanazawa. They didn't speak. Not yet. But they passed each other twice that week. Once in the hallway, near the stairwell leading to the upper gym. She was laughing, flanked by teammates, her ponytail catching sunlight like a blade. He stepped aside, eyes down, clutching his sketchbook a little tighter. Her laughter faltered briefly as she glanced at him, nothing more than a passing moment. The second time was in the library. She sat near the back, headphones in, skimming through a psychology textbook. He was at the opposite end of the room, sketching quietly. He looked up and saw her staring at the same page for far too long, brows drawn, lost in thought. She didn't notice him. Yet something about that silence between them lingered. That night she couldn't sleep. And neither could Toma. His sketchbook, open on his desk, held one unfinished drawing. A tall girl with a sharp jawline and a soccer armband, her eyes half-lidded with exhaustion and something hidden behind the bravado. He paused, pencil hovering, then scribbled in the margin. She moves like the world owes her everything, but maybe it already took too much. Chapter 2. shared moments in silence. It began with glances. In the school courtyard, Asuka stood with her teammates, cracking jokes that made others laugh a little too loudly. Her voice was the kind that cut through noise with ease, commanding, firm, impossible to ignore. But in between bursts of laughter and mock complaints about conditioning drills, she spotted him. Toma, alone beneath the big camphor tree again. She didn't know his name yet, but she had seen him enough times to start noticing the patterns. Always sketching, always quiet, always still, like he belonged more to the pages he filled than the hallways he walked. That day he looked up. Just for a second. Their eyes met. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she looked away first. Toma didn't understand why he kept noticing her. It made no sense. She was everything he avoided, loud, commanding, confident to the point of arrogance. People like her didn't see people like him. They never had. But every so often, when he glanced up from his sketchbook, he'd catch something strange in her expression. A flicker of fatigue, maybe. A wrinkle of frustration she didn't show to anyone else. He told himself he was just reading too much into it. A habit from drawing too many tragic heroes and broken champions. But still it lingered. He watched as she tapped her cleats against the ground, unfocused and distant. Maybe it was just nerves before the next game. Or maybe she wasn't as whole as she pretended to be. Still, he wasn't curious. He was cautious. People like her didn't notice people like him. And if they did, it usually didn't end well. Dude, Kenta said, nudging him during lunch. You're spacing out. Again. What are you drawing? More Ether Knights fan service. Toma blinked, snapping out of it. He turned the page so Kenta couldn't see. Just rough work. Nothing worth showing. Akira raised a brow from across the table. You were watching Hanazawa again. Should we be worried? No, Toma said quickly, but not harshly. Just trying to figure out what kind of person she really is. Kenta cackled. Good luck with that. She eats freshmen for breakfast. And honestly, man, she's not exactly our crowd. Akira leaned forward, lowering his voice. She hangs out with people who would have taped the sign to your back last year. Why the sudden interest? Toma didn't answer right away. His pencil rolled between his fingers. I don't know. Probably nothing. Asuka glanced at Kenta, and the look they exchanged wasn't approving. Not hostile, but wary. Protective. Just don't get pulled into something messy, Akira said. People like her don't usually notice guys like us for long. It was a Thursday when their world edged just a little closer. Asuka had stayed late to run sprints by herself. Practice had ended 20 minutes ago, but her movements were aggressive, tired, and stubborn, as if she was punishing the ground with every step. Toma had lingered outside the library, not realizing he could see the field from the bench nearby. When he noticed her alone on the turf, a silhouette sprinting beneath floodlights, he paused. He opened his sketchbook. His pencil moved without thinking. Lines. Posture. Power. Something just beneath the surface. Then her voice rang out across the empty space. Are you spying on me or something? He froze. She was facing him now, hands on her hips, breath visible in the cool air. He closed the sketchbook slowly and stood, brushing his sleeve nervously. No, just admiring the form. For a drawing. She blinked. A pause. Then she turned back toward the goalpost. Whatever. Just don't sell it. She didn't sound annoyed. More like she was trying not to care. He sat back down. Neither of them spoke again. But he kept drawing. And she didn't stop running. Later that night, Toma stared at the finished sketch. Her eyes were sharp, focused. But there was something aching beneath the determination. Something no one else probably noticed. He stared at the sketch for a long time. Then quietly closed the notebook. No captions. No extra lines. No hopeful metaphors. He wasn't sure what he was doing, or why he cared at all. It would be easier to stop looking. And when Asuka sat in the locker room, towel over her shoulders, something inside her felt a little quieter than usual. Like maybe someone had seen her. Even just for a second. Chapter 3, You Dropped This. The next few days passed with a kind of strained normalcy that made the silence between glances feel heavier. Toma stuck to his routines: library, art room, courtyard bench. He kept his head down, sketchbook in hand, avoiding unnecessary attention. Yet every time he looked up, it was like Asuka Hanazawa was there. Not always in person. Sometimes it was her name shouted from the soccer field. Sometimes it was her laughter echoing from the second-floor window near his art class. Sometimes it was just the way someone said her name with reverence or annoyance or jealousy. She was everywhere. He didn't like that he noticed. Asuka, on the other hand, found herself watching the tree line more than usual. She didn't know why. She told herself she wasn't curious, that she didn't care about the quiet sketchbook boy, who always looked like he wanted to disappear into the page. But something about him lingered, like a half-finished sentence she wasn't sure she wanted to read. On Tuesday, she passed him in the hallway. He was walking with his head down, books clutched close, his shoulder brushing hers by accident. He murmured sorry. She barely heard it, but it was the first time she realized how low and even his voice was. Not shy, just quiet, calculated. She turned to say something back, but he was already gone. Wednesday brought the collision. Literally. Toma had been helping Akira carry boxes of old art supplies from the storage closet near the gym. They were supposed to be prepping the room for the club's next comic layout. Kenta had already ditched to chase rumors of free onigiri in the cafeteria. Rounding the corner by the main stairs, Toma didn't see her. Asuka turned the same corner, towel slung over her shoulder, earbuds in. The box hit the floor with a dull crash. Brushes and pens spilled in every direction. "Watch it," she snapped, yanking one earbud out. Her eyes narrowed immediately when she saw who it was. Oh, of course. Toma dropped to his knees instantly, already gathering the supplies. "Sorry, I didn't see you." She didn't move to help, just stood over him with her arms crossed. "Do you even look where you're going? Or is bumping into people some kind of hobby for you?" He didn't look at her directly. "I usually do." There it was again, not defensive, not apologetic. Just quiet, measured, like he knew arguing would only make things worse. She scoffed. "Whatever. Just clean it up." He gathered everything quickly, methodically. When the last pen was collected, she noticed something on the floor beside the box, a sketch pad. She picked it up before he could reach for it. Flipped it open. Her face. Rough, unfinished, but unmistakable. Her brows lifted slightly, but only for a second. "Seriously? You're drawing me now? That's creepy." He reached out and took it back, careful not to snatch. "It was just a study. For motion." "Well, don't make a habit of it," she said, voice cold. "I'm not flattered." She turned on her heel and started to walk away. Toma exhaled slowly, gathering what was left. But then, "Hey." He looked up. She tossed something at his chest. A black ink pen. "You dropped this. Next time, try not to crash into the school's best athlete." She didn't wait for a response, just kept walking. That night, Toma didn't draw. He sat at his desk, the pen on the table beside him, and stared at the blank page for a long time. He didn't know what it meant, but it meant something. Chapter 4. Shift in the air. The tension didn't go away. If anything, it grew louder in the spaces between them. Asuka didn't acknowledge Toma in the halls. She didn't make eye contact during lunch, didn't nod at him across the courtyard. If anything, she seemed more annoyed than ever, like his mere presence was a pebble in her shoe. But she still looked, out of the corner of her eye, in the reflective glass of the school's side doors, through the netting of the soccer goal during cool-down stretches. It wasn't curiosity, not to her. It was something else, and it annoyed her even more. Toma, meanwhile, had fallen deeper into silence. He kept his drawings tucked away. No more sketches of her. No more observations. He stuck to fictional characters and vague, faceless heroes. Easier that way. He didn't mention the hallway collision to Kenta or Akira. He didn't need the commentary, the teasing, or the concern. He told himself it didn't matter. He told himself that whatever he thought might have existed in that shared moment, the awkward, Half-hearted pen toss and all was probably nothing. People like her didn't get tangled up with people like him. Not in real life. Faint. Barely a movement. He was walking out of the art room, carrying a mock-up board, when he heard her voice down the hall. You still planning to fake your way through tomorrow's match? Or are you gonna actually hustle this time? Her words were aimed at one of her teammates, but the bite was sharp enough to turn heads. The other girl rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. Asuka scoffed. Whatever. Don't come crying when we lose by 3. The air around her was flammable, proud, dismissive. Still, Toma noticed the way her jaw tightened when she turned away. The second glance she cast over her shoulder. The breath she held. He kept walking. He almost made it past her. Hey! Sketchbook. Toma paused. She was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. You don't talk much, do you? He turned slightly. Not unless I have something worth saying. She snorted. Is that your way of saying I'm not worth talking to? He met her eyes, steady and calm. No, just that I'm not in the habit of making noise for no reason. There was a flicker in her expression. Not anger. Something more like surprise. She pushed off the wall. You still got that sketch? The one you did of me. Toma hesitated. Why? Just wondering how badly you butchered my stride. He didn't answer. She clicked her tongue, clearly annoyed. Forget it. Just don't get any weird ideas. You're not clever for watching people when they're not looking. He didn't flinch. And you're not as unreadable as you think. The hallway was suddenly very still. Asuka tilted her head, almost amused, almost impressed. Careful. You might start sounding like someone with a spine. Toma's voice was quiet. You'd be surprised. She walked past him without another word. And for the first time, Toma didn't feel like he needed to vanish. That night he drew again. Not her face. Not the moment. Just a pair of cleats on a chalk-lined field, half buried in shadow. The title he scrawled beneath. Shift in the air. Chapter 5. The edge of something. There were no smiles. No dramatic run-ins. Just tension, stretched thin across a week of narrowed eyes, muttered comments, and glances that lingered a half-second too long. Asuka kept telling herself she wasn't thinking about him. But the truth felt heavier after each ignored hallway glance. After each memory of his even unbothered tone. Who was this guy? And why couldn't she shake the way he made her feel like a storm had passed through her ribcage? She was fine. She was always fine. She didn't need some sketchbook loner reading her like a diary. Toma avoided her. Not in the dramatic sprinting down the hall kind of way. He just recalibrated his routine. Left the art room a few minutes later. Took a longer path to the courtyard. Found a different bench. But she was still there. Not always near. Just within reach of sight or sound or breath. Laughing too loud with her friends. Arguing with the teacher about gym credit. Commanding every room like she was built from fire. And it made him ache with something he didn't want to name. Not yet. One afternoon, after a grueling scrimmage, Asuka sat on the bench near the back fence, water bottle forgotten in her lap. Her teammates trickled away, talking plans for the weekend, but she stayed behind. Across the field, in the shadows behind the maintenance shed, Toma had been sketching the empty goalposts until he realized she wasn't moving. Her head was down. Her usual scowl was gone. He didn't mean to walk closer, but he did. When she looked up, her face twisted with immediate irritation. You stalking me now? Toma shook his head. No, just noticed you looked tired. Gee, thanks. Great observation. Want a medal? He didn't answer. She sighed, ran a hand through her hair, damp with sweat. Sorry, I just didn't feel like going home yet. That caught him off guard. She'd said it so low, so plainly. He nodded once. I get that. She eyed him sideways. You always this calm? He thought about it, then answered, only on the outside. Oh, she actually laughed. Just once. Just enough. A moment passed. So what, you sketch people when they're sad now? He shrugged. Only when they sit still. She looked down at her water bottle. You're weird. You're mean, he replied. She blinked, then smirked. Fair. When Toma returned home that evening, he didn't open his sketchbook right away. Instead, he wrote a single line on a scrap of paper and taped it to the wall above his desk. Some storms don't roar. They smolder. He didn't sign it, but he thought of her anyway. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a mistake. Chapter 6. Underneath it all. The soccer field was empty. That never happened. Not after practice. Not when Asuka was in a mood. But there she was, standing dead center under the goalpost, arms crossed, hair pulled back like she meant business. The floodlights hadn't kicked on yet. Shadows stretched long and sharp across the grass. Toma saw her from the path behind the bleachers. He paused, sketchbook under one arm, debating whether to turn around. She spotted him. Oh, it's you, she called. Great. He stood still. I can leave. She rolled her eyes and turned away. Do what you want. So he stayed. At a distance, just barely in earshot, sitting on the lowest bench with his notebook closed. Asuka kicked a ball toward the fence. Hard. It bounced back with a dull thunk. She let it roll. Didn't chase it. After a long silence, she said, You know I wasn't always like this. Toma tilted his head slightly. Like what? Angry. Bossy. People think I just popped out of the womb screaming orders and scoring goals. He waited. She didn't look at him. Just kept staring at the far fence. I used to be nice. Too nice. Always tried to help everyone. Be everyone's friend. Know what that got me? Pushed around. Forgotten. Walked on. Even by people I trusted. Especially them. He listened. He didn't interrupt. So I learned. Smile less. Hit harder. Speak louder. Don't give anything away. That's what wins. She turned her head, eyes dark. Don't look at me like that. I'm not fishing for pity. I'm not. She narrowed her eyes, skeptical. Then what's that look? Toma shrugged. Just seeing you. That seemed to shut her up. The wind picked up a little. The ball rolled gently along the grass. She walked over and stopped it with her foot. Sometimes I wonder if I even remember how to be soft anymore. Toma looked down. You remembered the pen. She blinked, then snorted. One act of basic decency. Don't get ahead of yourself. But she didn't walk away. And neither did he. That night, Toma didn't draw her. Instead, he sketched a goalpost. Not straight on. From behind at an angle as if watching someone walk away. The title beneath it. Underneath it all. A single figure stood in the distance. Facing the fence. Shadow long. But still there. Chapter 7. Things left unsaid. Toma didn't know what they were. Friends? Not really. Strangers? Not anymore. It was something in between. Like the quiet that lingers after a song ends. Not silence exactly. Just waiting. Waiting for what, though, he couldn't say. Asuka didn't change overnight. She was still sharp, still ruled the field with fire in her eyes. But something shifted. Small things. She stopped glaring at him in the halls. She asked him once if his comic had a villain yet. She didn't insult him when he muttered something sarcastic in return. They weren't conversations. Not really. Just fragments. Broken pieces of something slowly, awkwardly forming. Like the moments between raindrops before a downpour. It was after school late when it happened. Asuka was sitting on the school roof, one of the few spots still dry after a long drizzle. Toma had gone up to photograph the skyline for a background panel. He didn't expect anyone to be there. Least of all her. She didn't flinch when she heard him. Figures, she muttered. Can't even sulk alone. I can leave. She hesitated, then patted the spot next to her without looking. He sat. Neither of them said anything for a while. The sky was streaked in pink and gray. A tired sunset. Birds in lazy arcs. Finally, she asked, Do you think people can change? Toma glanced sideways. Not sure. Think they can try. Trying's exhausting. So is pretending. She laughed. Not loudly. Just enough. He pulled the camera from his bag, snapped a quick shot of the skyline. She didn't move. Ever think about running away? She asked. All the time. Why don't you? He paused. Because I want to see how the story ends. She didn't reply, just leaned back on her elbows, legs stretched out. Toma didn't know what to do with the stillness. It didn't feel like tension. It didn't feel like pressure. Felt like peace. Later that night, he drew the sky exactly as it had been. Soft clouds, scattered birds, fading light. But in the corner of the page, he left a space blank. A place for something or someone not yet ready to be drawn. He labeled it, Things Left Unsaid. Chapter 8, The Distance Between Us. It was raining. Not a storm. Just a quiet gray drizzle that turned the walkways slick and the windows blurry. The kind of rain that made everything seem farther away. Toma sat alone in the art room, watching droplets slide down the glass. His sketchbook was open, half a page finished. A panel from the comic he and Kenta were trying to build. It wasn't coming together. Everything felt disconnected. He hadn't spoken to Asuka in 2 days. It started small. A missed glance in the hallway. An ignored wave from across the courtyard. Then she skipped her usual post-practice stop by the benches. The place where she sometimes lingered. The place where she sometimes didn't bark at him. Toma wasn't sure if he'd done something wrong. And he hated how much that mattered. Asuka was spiraling. Not visibly. On the surface, she was still sharp-tongued, fire-eyed, all bite and swagger. But something underneath was slipping. During practice, her passes came too fast. Her footwork, too aggressive. She snapped at her teammates, cursed under her breath, stormed off early. Coach gave her a look. She didn't explain. Because how could she? What was she supposed to say? That she kept thinking about a boy who saw through her? That every time she met his gaze, it felt like she was being held together and torn open all at once? No. So she shut down. That was easier. Safer. On Thursday, Toma found her sketch. It wasn't hers. Not really. But he saw it pinned on the bulletin board outside the gym, an art class assignment. Charcoal, rough lines, hurried shading. But it was her. Mid-kick. Frozen in motion. And she looked tired. Not weak. Just real. He stood in front of it for a long time. Then left without a word. Friday came. Then Saturday. Nothing changed. Kenta noticed. You're moody. More than usual. That about a girl or your storyline? Toma just shook his head. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't even want to think about it. But he was thinking about it. Constantly. The things she'd said. The way she'd looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. The wall she'd started to build back up. And why it hurt more than he wanted it to. Sunday morning, he went to the field. No one was there. The bleachers were wet. The nets sagged from the rain. He sat down anyway. Sketchbook in his lap. Pencil still. He didn't draw. Just waited. Even though he told himself he wouldn't. Even though part of him knew she wasn't coming. Still he waited. Because sometimes the quiet said more than the noise. And the distance between them? It wasn't as wide as it used to be. But it hurt more now. Because it meant something. Chapter 9. What We Protect. Asuka played like she had something to prove. It was the second half of a regional match, and sweat clung to her skin like a second jersey. Her team was behind by 1. The stands were roaring. The rain had just started to fall again. She didn't care. She ran harder. She blocked every pass that came close. Called plays sharper than the coaches. Her teammates followed her lead not because they were told to, but because they trusted her. Or feared her. Maybe both. And yet, in the space between 2 whistles, she caught a glimpse of the bleachers and saw him. Toma, soaked, sketchbook half covered by his jacket, pencil gripped tight. Watching. He hadn't said anything to her since the silence settled between them. But he was still there. And that meant something. After the win, her teammates swarmed her. They laughed, yelled, chanted her name. The school banner whipped in the wind above them. Asuka smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. Toma didn't wait near the locker room. He stood at the field's edge, notebook tucked beneath his arm, trying not to feel like an extra. She found him anyway. Still in uniform, cleats damp, hair pulled into a messy ponytail. You came. He nodded. Didn't plan to. Just ended up here. She smirked. You're really bad at pretending you don't care. And you're really good at pretending you don't want anyone to. A pause. Long enough for her to sigh. Look. I know I've been difficult. That's one word. She didn't snap. Just folded her arms and looked down at the grass. It's easier to fight when I'm mad. Easier to win too. But lately, I don't know. It's getting harder to stay mad. He glanced at her. Maybe because you're not angry. Just tired. She met his eyes. For once, she didn't look away. They walked in silence to the covered pavilion near the back lot. Rain drummed overhead. She leaned against the post. I'm not good at soft. You don't have to be. But I want to be. Sometimes. Just not if it means getting hurt again. Toma's voice was quiet. Then don't start with soft. Start with real. She stared at him, then reached into her duffel bag and pulled out something small. A torn sheet of paper. His handwriting. Some storms don't roar. They smolder. Found this tape behind the gym, she said. Didn't know if it was yours. But it felt like you. Toma's breath caught. It was mine. I left it there. Didn't think anyone would read it. I did. She stepped closer. You said you want to see how the story ends. Right. He nodded. Then maybe, don't skip the middle. The rain fell harder, a steady rhythm above them. Neither moved. Because for once, neither had to. And in the space between the thunder and the stillness, something soft began to take root. Something worth protecting. Chapter 10, Mistakes We Make. Toma made the mistake of letting his guard down. He left his sketchbook on the bench beside the field while grabbing a soda from the vending machine. He shouldn't have. He usually never did. But it was just for a minute. That was all it took. Asuka sat on the edge of her usual circle, water bottle in hand, eyes half on the conversation, half on the quiet space across the courtyard. Then she heard it. What's this little book? Is this his? Kana's voice, smug and curious. Then a shriek of laughter. Oh, my God. Guys, you have to see this. Asuka turned her head. Fast. Her teammates were huddled in a loose cluster, flipping through something. Toma's sketchbook. Toma, wide-eyed pale, was hurrying across the courtyard, weaving between students, voice tight. Hey, please don't give that back. They didn't. Kana held it up like a trophy. You've been drawing her for weeks? This is actually insane. Look at this one, she's tying her cleats. Oh wait, here she is yelling at practice. Seriously, dude? You some kind of stalker? Another girl snorted. Bet he sniffs her shampoo bottles when no one's watching. Laughter. Toma reached them, tried to grab the sketchbook, but Kana held it higher. Come on, just give it back. So you can go back to drawing your little fantasy girlfriend? One of the soccer guys jeered. Toma's face flushed. His hand trembled at his side. He looked to Asuka. She stood. Everyone turned. She was silent for a moment. Seriously? You've been sketching me like some obsessed loser? That's not just creepy, it's pathetic. Toma froze. Everything around him blurred. The laughter, the breeze, even the blinding sun seemed to dim. It was as if someone had slammed the world into slow motion. His breath hitched, chest tightening like it was caught in a vice. A hollow rush of heat crawled up his neck, and his vision swam. He had never felt so exposed. Not even when he was pushed around in middle school. Not even when he was ignored, forgotten, left out. Because this time, they weren't just mocking him, they were tearing apart something he'd created. Something private. Something honest. And the worst part? She was helping them do it. Kana barked a laugh. Knew it. You've got a fanboy. A weird one. Someone flipped the sketchbook again. Pages flapping like wings. Toma's voice cracked. Please, give it back. Kana rolled her eyes. Fine. Here. She threw it. The sketchbook hit the pavement with a dull slap. A few pages slid out, loose pieces he'd been working on. The wind caught one, dragging it through a puddle. Toma dropped to his knees, trying to gather them, hands shaking. Ink bled. Paper curled. And still the laughter didn't stop. Asuka looked at him, at the mess on the ground, at what they'd done. And she said nothing. Eventually Toma stood. Not fast. Carefully. Quietly. He didn't look at any of them. He walked away, clutching the ruined sketchbook to his chest. Not a single person stopped him. Not even her. Asuka sat back down. Her legs felt numb. Her friends resumed their conversation, but she couldn't hear them. All she saw were those pages. And his eyes right before they broke. She reached under the table where one of the drawings had slid. It was her. Mid-kick. Hair wild. Mouth open mid-command. Pure motion. But the way he'd drawn her eyes soft, focused, it was how she never saw herself. She folded it carefully. Didn't say a word the rest of lunch. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking, because she knew what she'd done. And worse, what she hadn't. Chapter 11. What It Means to Fall, Part 1. The fallout didn't arrive like thunder. It came in the quiet. A week passed. Each day felt like wading through fog. There was no explosion, no direct consequence. Just 1,000 silent fractures slowly forming between people who used to share glances, gestures, or even silence without tension. Asuka threw herself into practice. The first few days, she trained harder than anyone. Her sprints were faster. Her shots louder against the net. Coaches praised her hustle, teammates cheered when she nailed a perfect volley. But it wasn't right. She was playing angry. And angry didn't win games. I noticed first. You're not passing like you used to, she said after Wednesday's drills. They're not open, Asuka snapped too quickly. You didn't even look. Asuka grabbed her bag and walked off without responding. Friday brought their second game of the week. A tough rival school. The stands were full. Even some teachers came. But not him. Asuka kept glancing at the far edge of the field, the hill where he used to sit, half shaded by a cluster of trees. He wasn't there. By halftime, the score was tied. Asuka had already missed 2 key passes and gotten flagged for a reckless slide. In the locker room, Coach stood in front of them with her arms folded. We're better than this. You all know it. Hanazawa, get your head in the game. I don't care what's going on with you. You want to be captain next year? Start acting like one. The words hit hard. But not as hard as the silence that followed. Even Ayan didn't meet her eyes. The second half started and Asuka tried. She really did. But it wasn't the kind of trying that made the difference. It wasn't sharp or strategic. It was desperate. She called for balls too late, took shots when she should have passed, ignored open teammates in her determination to prove something, to herself maybe. She missed the winning goal by inches, sending it sailing wide and over the fence. The final whistle blew. They lost 2-1. Coach didn't yell. That was worse. In the huddle afterward, no one looked at her. Asuka stood in the locker room, jersey soaked, heart racing as the rest of the team quietly packed up. Kana passed her without a word. Even Ayan gave her only a shoulder pat before walking out. She sat down slowly on the bench. Alone. She pulled the crumpled water bottle from her bag and stared at her reflection in the distorted plastic. For a second, it wasn't her face she saw. It was his. Not the hurt one. The one from his drawings. Focused. Kind. Seeing something no one else did. She blinked and it was gone. And she felt something claw its way into her chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It was shame. Meanwhile, Toma buried himself in routine. He avoided the courtyard entirely. Took the longer routes to class. Ate lunch on the rooftop stairwell where no one ever went. Kenta and Akira tried to pull him out of it. Come on, man. It's not like you torched the school, Akira said on Thursday, flopping beside him. You didn't do anything wrong, Kenta added. Didn't I? Toma muttered, eyes fixed on his sketchbook. It was empty. He hadn't touched a pencil in days. You shared something personal. That's not a crime, Kenta said. Toma didn't reply. His thoughts swirled too fast to speak clearly. He kept seeing her face, hearing her voice, sharp, cruel, a weapon she didn't hesitate to use. And yet, every time he tried to hate her, he remembered the rooftop, the smile, the flicker of something real. He didn't know what to believe. He didn't know if he wanted to believe anything at all. The week dragged. For Toma, every hallway was a battlefield of whispers, every classroom a gauntlet of glances. Most people didn't say anything directly, but the silence was its own kind of violence. Akira stayed close, filling the space with chatter and poorly timed jokes. Kenta, quieter, made sure Toma had a seat at lunch and a buffer when anyone stared too long. But it didn't stop the sinking feeling. He hadn't drawn a person since it happened. He kept telling himself it didn't matter. But that was a lie. And deep down he knew it. Asuka, meanwhile, was unraveling. She didn't speak to Kana. Ain barely spoke to her. Coach had stopped giving her more than clipped instructions. Every time Asuka laced up her cleats, her fingers trembled. She played like a ghost, flashes of brilliance followed by spirals of doubt. No longer angry but unmoored. And through it all, her eyes searched. The stairwell, the trees, the corner of the courtyard where he sometimes doodled between classes. He was never there. And somehow that absence screamed louder than any insult she'd thrown his way. Late one night, Asuka sat on her bedroom floor in silence, her school planner resting across her knees. From between its pages, she drew out a carefully folded slip of paper, worn at the creases, edges curled slightly. She didn't unfold it right away, just stared at it in her hands, like it might speak first. When she finally opened it, the room felt quieter, like even the air held its breath. She looked for a long time. And whatever was on that page, whatever had once made her scoff, now made her pause. She didn't know what to call the feeling, only that it settled low in her chest and wouldn't leave. She refolded the paper gently, slid it back into its place, and said nothing to anyone about it. Kenta stopped by Toma's place that Saturday. They didn't talk much, just sat on the floor eating chips and flipping through old comics. Eventually, Kenta pulled one of Toma's older sketchbooks from the shelf. "Remember this? You drew every street in our neighborhood, even the cracked sidewalks." Toma gave a quiet nod. "You ever think about going back to that?" Toma paused, then shrugged. "I guess. Doesn't feel right." Kenta looked at him. "Maybe that's how you know it's the right thing to do." By Sunday night, Asuka found herself standing outside the stairwell door. She didn't open it, just placed a folded note inside the crack and walked away. She didn't know if he'd find it, but it was something. And for now, that had to be enough. Chapter 12, A Note in the Quiet. Toma found the note on Monday. He was running late and hadn't meant to go to the stairwell. His feet just sort of carried him there, like muscle memory. Maybe out of habit. Maybe out of something else. It was wedged gently beneath the doorframe. Folded in half, no name. His breath caught when he saw it. He glanced around, empty. The world hushed around him as he picked it up. His fingers hesitated before unfolding it. Just a few lines. No apology. No excuse. Only, "I never meant to hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I see it now. And I'm sorry." No name, but he knew the handwriting. Sharp edges. Confident slant. Hers. He read it twice, then folded it up again and slipped it into his pocket. And didn't say a word about it to anyone. Asuka didn't wait for a response. She didn't look for him after that. Not in the halls. Not during lunch. Not from the soccer field. But she started changing. Not with him. With everyone else. During practice that week, she called out encouragement instead of barking orders. Passed more. Talked less. When Ain missed a shot, Asuka patted her back instead of sighing. Her teammates noticed. So did Coach. "Keep that energy," Coach muttered on Thursday. "You're a lot more useful when you're not acting like a queen." Asuka didn't snap back. She nodded. Ain raised an eyebrow at her afterward. "You okay?" "Trying to be," Asuka said. "I think I owe it to the team." She didn't say who else she owed it to. Toma heard the whispers before he saw anything. "Did you see Hanazawa at the game?" She was actually nice. I heard she helped clean up after practice. Maybe she's finally coming down to earth. He kept his head down, sketchbook unopened. But the lines in his thoughts started shifting. He hadn't forgiven her. He didn't even know if he wanted to. But the note lived in his pocket now. And something about the way she was moving through the world again, less sharp, less untouchable, stuck with him. He caught glimpses of her once or twice, at a distance, in the way her shoulders hunched after practice, in the way she sat in the library for 10 minutes before walking out again. He pretended not to notice. But he noticed. Friday's game was different. Asuka didn't score. She passed the ball that set up the goal that won it. She didn't raise her arms or shout when the whistle blew. Just smiled at Ayin, then jogged straight to the bench and sat down. She didn't need to be the hero this time. Coach nodded once. Nothing more. Her chest hurt a little, but not in the usual way. It wasn't anger or shame. Just something unfamiliar, like something heavy had been set down, and she wasn't sure whether to grieve or be grateful. Thomas stayed late at school that day. He stood at the top of the stairwell for a long time, holding the folded note in his hand. He didn't unfold it again. Just looked out at the field where the sun dipped low over the goalposts. No one was there. And for the first time in weeks, he sat down and started to draw. Toma didn't show the drawing to anyone. It wasn't of her, not this time. Just shadows and outlines. A girl running. Not smiling, not posing, just moving like she needed to outrun something only she could see. He stopped halfway through shading her cleats. Closed the book. He wasn't sure what bothered him more. That he hadn't been able to finish it or that he wanted to. Asuka's weekend was quiet. The house echoed. Her mother was gone on a business trip again. Her father, as usual, was just a voice behind a newspaper. She didn't go out with her team Saturday night, even when Ayin texted her 3 times. Instead, she sat on the edge of her bed and scrolled through old group photos on her phone. Soccer victories, beach trips, festival nights. She didn't appear in many of them, even though she'd been there. And the ones she did appear in? Her eyes didn't look like they did now. At school on Monday, she walked by him, close enough to see the stitching on his jacket. He didn't flinch. Didn't look up. Didn't stop sketching whatever it was on the page in front of him. But she saw the corner of something sticking out of his jacket pocket. It was folded, creased. The note. She kept walking. Before lunch, they sat together at the edge of the field while the team packed up. The sun hung low, warm on their backs, catching in the strands of Ayin's loose ponytail and the edges of Kana's scuffed cleats. Ayin nudged her lightly with her elbow. Hey. Asuka looked over. You're not the only one changing, you know, Ayin said, tone unsteady like she wasn't sure if this counted as teasing or serious. Kana, even me. We've been watching. Watching what? You, Kana said, adjusting her shin guard as she stretched. Trying. Slowing down. Letting people in. That kind of thing matters. It doesn't go unnoticed. Ayin sighed. Honestly, we thought you were gonna bury it. Pretend nothing happened. Go full steal again. That would have been easier. I thought about it, Asuka admitted. Her voice cracked more than she liked. Kana met her eyes. But you didn't. And that's something. Ayin pulled at the tape on her wrist. We gave you crap about him. Still think he's kind of weird. But honestly, we were jerks too. And maybe that drawing wasn't as creepy as we said. Maybe we didn't even really look at it. Asuka blinked fast, throat tight. Just saying, Ayin went on, a little more carefully now, if you're gonna fix it, don't wait forever. Pride doesn't mean much when there's something better on the other side. Asuka didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. But she heard them. Really heard them. You talked to him yet? Ayin asked over lunch that afternoon, stabbing at her yakisoba like it had personally wronged her. No, Asuka said. Ayin gave her a look. You gonna? I don't know, Asuka muttered. I don't want to force it. Force it? Ayin dropped her chopsticks. Asuka, you look, I'm glad you're actually acting like a human being lately. Really? But if you're just going to wait around for him to magically trust you again, you're gonna be waiting forever. Asuka didn't reply. She already was. That afternoon, Toma sat with Kenta and Akira under the trees behind the school building. Kenta was thumbing through a sketch idea. Akira had a soda tucked in the crook of his arm and a crumpled bag of chips beside him. "She's being weird," Akira said, squinting toward the field. "Like, actually weird. She even said hi to someone from orchestra earlier. You believe that?" Toma shrugged. "Maybe she's trying to be better." Akira raised a brow. "You believe that?" "No," Toma said. "I just said maybe." Kenta nodded quietly. "She's not pretending. Not from what I've seen." Toma didn't respond, but he didn't disagree either. On Thursday, Asuka stayed after practice. She gathered stray cones, collected the ragged pennies, helped the manager sort gear back into storage. Ain stayed a little while, then left without saying much. Asuka didn't mind. She wasn't doing it for anyone else. And yet, as she looked up toward the stairwell and saw no one there, something in her still dipped a little lower inside her chest. That night, Toma opened his sketchbook again. This time, the girl on the page wasn't running. She was sitting on the bench beside a soccer field, head in her hands, cleats untied, surrounded by nothing but empty space. He didn't shade her face. Didn't have to. Somehow the quiet said enough. Chapter 13. I'll be there if you let me. It rained the day everything came to a head. Not the soft kind of rain that made windows fog and classrooms feel cozy. This was a steady, cold drizzle, the kind that soaked through your uniform by second period and made the hallway smell like wet paper and tile polish. Toma sat in the back of homeroom, hood still damp from the walk, trying to disappear into his sketchbook. He hadn't drawn Asuka in days. Hadn't drawn much of anything. Kenta glanced at him from the seat across the aisle. "You good?" Toma gave the smallest shrug. "Yeah, just tired." Kenta didn't push. He never did. Asuka's shoes squeaked on the gym floor. Practice had been canceled due to the weather, but she stayed late anyway, taking shots alone. The echo of each strike bounced hard off the walls. She missed more than she hit. Her muscles were tight. Her head, louder than usual. The guilt sat like a stone in her ribs. It had been a week and a half. Since the drawing. Since the note. Since the look on his face when she didn't say a word. It haunted her more than she wanted to admit. She paused by the bleachers and stared up at the ceiling for a long moment, sweat cooling on her neck, the echo of her missed shot still bouncing in her head. She thought of all the times she barked at teammates who missed their marks. Thought of how easy it had been to be cruel, how it made her feel in control, untouchable. And then she thought of his eyes that day, how they hadn't narrowed or flared, just dimmed. She hadn't apologized face to face. Hadn't even tried. Not really. And yet, some stupid part of her still wanted him to look at her like he used to. Even just once. Friday brought the team party. A seasonal thing. Big turnout. Loud music. Laughter in the gym that had been transformed with paper lanterns, balloons, and plastic snack tables. Asuka arrived late. She wore her jacket too long, shoulders stiff, hair damp from the drizzle outside. Ain waved her over. Kana leaned in. "Glad you came. We weren't sure." "Didn't want to. Just didn't want people asking why I didn't," Asuka muttered. Ain raised a brow but said nothing. She watched Asuka scan the crowd. He wasn't there. But people were talking about him. Behind her. Off to the side. He's so weird, right? Like, who even sketches people in their sleep? I heard he filled a whole book just with her. Isn't that kind of obsessed? Asuka didn't flinch, but she heard it. Every word. Like paper cuts. She made it halfway to the punch table before she stopped. Ain followed. "What is it?" "I don't belong here," Asuka said. Her voice wasn't loud. It was worse, it was quiet. Honest. Ain frowned. "You're Asuka Hanazawa. This whole party's half built around your name. Maybe that's the problem." Toma didn't plan to go. He walked past the gym after dark, hands in his pockets, hoodie pulled up against the rain. Music thudded from inside. Lights flickered through the high windows. He paused. Maybe out of morbid curiosity. Maybe because he thought he saw her silhouette through the glass. But he didn't go in. He turned, walked to the back of the school, and sat on the low wall near the bike racks. Raindrops drummed on the pavement. He took out his sketchbook. The page was already started. She was standing in the rain in that one, just a rough outline so far. Face turned away. Shoulders squared like she was daring the sky to try harder. He stared at it for a long time. He didn't know what he wanted from her, but he knew how he'd feel if she didn't show up. The door to the gym opened quietly, just enough for someone to slip out. Asuka stood there, clutching her jacket tight around her frame. She didn't see him at first, but then their eyes met across the empty pavement. She froze. He didn't move. She walked over slowly, raindrops clinging to her hair. No words passed between them for a full 10 seconds. Then, "I kept one," she said. He blinked. "What?" Her hands tightened in her sleeves. "One of the sketches. The one they didn't rip. I kept it." He looked down. She stepped closer. "Not because I deserved to, because I didn't, but because I couldn't throw it away." Toma said nothing. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she went on. I want you to know I saw it. I see it." She was soaked now, hair dripping, eyes wide and unguarded for once. He closed his sketchbook. His voice came out quiet. "You said that in the note." "I meant it." He nodded slowly. "I know." Another beat of silence. Then softly, "I'm still angry." She nodded back. "I know." He looked away. "But I don't hate you." She laughed under her breath like she didn't quite believe it. "I'm not asking for a second chance," she said. "I just want to stop pretending like none of it mattered." He met her eyes again. "It mattered." She breathed in sharply, like something inside her had been waiting just to hear that. Asuka didn't sleep that night. Not really. She sat on her bedroom floor with her soccer ball wedged between her knees, staring at the crumpled sketch she'd kept hidden inside her planner for weeks. She didn't unfold it. She didn't need to. She already knew every line. Not just the drawing, but the way it made her feel. Seen. Flawed. Real. And now, more than anything, she knew what had to come next. The next morning, the storm had passed, but the sky was still heavy, gray and low, like it hadn't made up its mind. Asuka showed up to school early. No makeup. No entourage. Just her and her duffel bag. She stopped by the art room first. Kenta was there, setting up ink pens, looking surprised as she walked in. You lost." "No," she said, shifting her weight. "I'm looking for Toma." He looked her up and down cautiously. "He's not here yet." Asuka nodded. Her voice was quiet. "If you see him, tell him I'm not running anymore." Kenta raised a brow. "What's that mean?" "I think he'll know." She turned and left before she could explain it further. Friday. It was their last home game before break, and the stadium lights bled white across the field. The sky hung over them like wet paper, heavy and waiting. Asuka's legs ached. She'd run more in this game than any before, less out of pride, more out of purpose. Passing, defending, hustling. She didn't bark orders. She didn't push others out of position. She just played. They lost anyway. 2-1. No dramatic save. No miracle goal. Just the hollow whistle of the final call and the weight of effort that hadn't been enough. The team started drifting toward the bench. Some heads low. Some already laughing off the sting. Asuka stood still at midfield, hands on her hips, catching her breath. And then she saw him. Toma. Not close, watching from the far gate near the edge of the fence, half hidden behind the bleachers. He was already turning to go. And just before he slipped out of sight, someone behind her, Ryota, a second string forward, snorted. "Is it just me, or was that sketch guy staring at you the whole time?" Another player chimed in. "Seriously, dude's got issues. Probably drawing us losing like it's a live-action tragedy." Laughter. Then someone added, "Kinda weird how he keeps showing up, huh?" A few more voices joined in, amused and dismissive, feeding off each other. Asuka turned slowly. She could feel the eyes, waiting for her to roll with it, to shrug, to laugh. She didn't. "You mean Toma?" They blinked at her. He's not weird, she said, voice clear. He's not a stalker. He's not pathetic. He's not any of the things you're saying. Silence now. The kind that settles over a crowd right before it turns. She looked at Ryota, then at the others. He's my friend. No one laughed this time. A few players looked away. Someone coughed. Ayan, standing at the edge of the huddle, smiled, quiet, proud, and gave a small nod. Damn right he is, she muttered, just loud enough for Asuka to hear. Asuka's throat tightened, but she didn't let it show. She didn't wait for approval or applause. She just turned and jogged off the field, toward the exit where Toma had disappeared. Toma was already halfway down the sidewalk by the time she caught up. Asuka. He didn't turn. Game's over. You should be with your team. I needed to say something first. He finally looked at her. Eyes guarded. Voice low. If this is some kind of clean-up thing, you don't have to. It's not. A pause. He waited. They said things about you, she admitted. Stupid things. Stuff I've let slide before. I didn't this time. I heard. Toma looked down at the pavement. His fingers twitched like he wanted to shove them into his pockets but didn't. You didn't have to say anything. Yeah, I did, she said. Another pause. Why now? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Because I should have done it sooner, she said. Because I let everyone think things that weren't true. About you. About us. And because I finally realized something. She took a breath. If I don't stand up for you, then what's the point of asking you to believe I've changed? Toma's face didn't soften. But he didn't walk away either. Do you really mean it? He asked. Or are you just trying to make yourself feel better? That stung. But she didn't flinch. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe it's both. That's honest, he said. They stood there for a moment. Cars passed behind them. The sound of the final whistle still echoed somewhere in the distance. You don't have to forgive me, she said finally. But I'm not going to pretend you weren't the one who saw something in me before I even saw it in myself. Toma looked at her for a long time. And then quietly, I'm not ready to be what you want me to be. Asuka nodded. I'm not either. They didn't smile. They didn't hug. But the distance between them didn't feel as sharp anymore. Will you walk back with me? She asked hesitantly. Yeah, he said. Later that weekend, when Asuka opened her planner, she found something tucked between the pages. A single sheet. A new sketch. Not of her. Not exactly. Just a girl on a field, wind in her hair, the sky wide behind her. No caption. No initials. But drawn with care. And she smiled because for the first time, the drawing didn't look like a version of who she'd been. It looked like who she might become.
Thanks for listening. Stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next story.